Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I always light a candle when I get started, but I never know if people can see the candle. So I do have a very nice candle here today. Hello, Millicent. I like that name, Millicent. Millicent. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we have a small group today, but that's okay. I did some remote viewing last night. Hi, Len. Hi, Jane. Hi, Ruth and Beverly. We'll take a brief, hi, Renee and Alton up. I spoke, I said, well, we had a small group. And then people had it timed because they knew I was going to start late today. So hello. Hi, Alton and Nancy and Bob. Robert Muller's here. Yay. Hi, Karen and Ashley, Kate, Laura. Ooh, we're growing really quickly. Now we're up to 60. I'm so happy everyone could join us. Laura, Susan, solitary empath. No, don't be a solitary empath. Your heart is connected to my heart and all the hearts of all the other human beings. And so you go into the solitary and you find your heart's ultimately connected to all the other hearts. So did everybody enjoy meeting my friend Marcia Martin? I hope you all did. She is a professional empath. She's also a therapist. And she uses the heart-centered meditation during the therapeutic session. So she helps a lot of people. She certainly helped me. And we were happy to have the opportunity to interview her for this channel. Hi, Jamie and Rose and Jane and Grandma Kedge and etc. Margine. We're going to do a couple things today. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to review the remote view I did last night, and then we're going to do a tarot blitz. So everybody be ready with your questions. You're going to have about 30 minutes of tarot blitzes today, so that'll be fun. Hi, Linda. If anybody wants to be a moderator, absolutely, now's the time to say, yes, I would be a moderator for you, Miss Whimsy. And we would absolutely appreciate the help. Hi, Eldred and Elva. A Park, hello, hello. Please let me know if anybody would like to help me, Marcia. Thank you. Marcia was awesome. Yes, Ashley, she is awesome. And she's a great healer as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with the remote viewing I did last night. This starts to get really, really complicated, and I think it's going to help people who are still a little bit confused. The meditations keep going back to the Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. I've been doing a lot of focus on that. If everybody can remember when we first got into Putin's energy, when we were first meditating about Putin, the first thing we saw is we had a vision of trade routes, right? Does everybody remember that? I did like a global, somebody's out there. I did like a global remote view, and I found myself floating over all these trade routes, and all this stuff all this trade was moving. And I saw that people were warring and fighting for trade routes and trying to move trade. I don't think like this because I've never been in the military. And so for me, that was kind of an interesting panoramic view to be able to see the world in terms of ancient trade routes, new trade routes, building new trade routes, and how NATO and Russia and China are competing to move trade and get trade out. Now I'm going to share a remote. It's somewhat upsetting, so I think I want to just start and do a prayer first. And it's okay if people get upset. I'm not going to take it personally unless you come after me. But let's go ahead and do a prayer, and then I'm going to tell you what last night's remote was about. And I think that it's going to answer a lot of questions for people. I want to call on white light protection for myself and my viewers as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Give us the clarity and wisdom needed to empower those who watch this channel. to make the best decisions for themselves, their families, for the people they love, and for the planet. And with that, I say amen. Amen, everyone. All right, so last night I did a meditation. Oh, good, Michelle's here. She's one of our moderators. Thank you, Michelle, for coming and helping. All right, so last night I did a meditation and I found myself back at trade routes. And last night I was attempting to try and connect with the intelligence agencies and what the intelligence agencies knew about Jeffrey Epstein. Were they a part of it? Did they contribute? How were they involved? I want to start by saying that this is an entertainment channel. All we do here is that I meditate using the heart-centered technique, and I also use the traditional remote viewing technique, and I just tell people what I see, and sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong, and it's just, just my opinion, right? So I don't want people to think that I push conspiracy theories here or anything like that. I simply do the technique, and then I tell people what I found. So what I found was that the intelligence agencies had been monitoring trade routes, particularly they had been monitoring trade routes that had to do with moving things that promoted terrorism. So along these trade routes, we see drugs being sold, things being bought with cryptocurrency. They were also monitoring where money was being hidden, the Seychelles Islands. And in the middle of monitoring these trade routes, these activities where people were hiding money with cryptocurrency, they were running people. It appears like it was like the triangular trade routes that used to exist before the Civil War, but it looks like they were moving people, drugs, and weapons along these trade routes. Okay, that's the first thing that I want to say. People, drugs, and weapons. So what the Israelis, what the British intelligence, what the Saudi Arabian moderates that were taking control of Saudi Arabia, these were the moderates, these were the people that were frightened of the extremists, the people that had bombed 9/11, Saudi Arabian extremists funding this type of criminal activity along trade routes. So there was a cooperation that started to happen between the Israelis, Saudi Arabian moderates, the British, and the United States monitoring the trade routes. And, when Obama got into office, this was an ongoing investigation. It had escalated after 9/11 with more cooperation out of Saudi Arabia working with their moderates. And the idea was to continue to monitor the situation, continue to monitor the trade routes. Now, one of these trade routes was smuggling Saudi Arabian weapons, weapons from Muslim extremists and taking them into Libya, which destabilized Libya. Taking these weapons, Iran, into Egypt. There's a trade route. It goes into Gaza, and from Gaza, the weapons are then constructed. So you have weapons going into Gaza. You have weapons going into Lebanon, to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to these proxy armies. All right. So that was the bigger picture. That was the bigger picture that the American government, the British, Israel were looking at. They were trying to look at these trade routes. So in a way, you could say it's kind of like Iran-Contra 2.0. So what we find ourselves in the middle of is Iran-Contra 2.0. Where the intelligence agencies are watching all of these trade routes, and then in the middle of watching all these trade routes, they find people have been compromised. They find Americans have been compromised because Americans are human beings, and they get tempted. They get tempted by younger women, or if you're really sick, tempting people who may have tendencies, helping people hide their money in the Seychelles. So what the American intelligence agency found is they found that there were Americans in positions of power who had been compromised, like Jeffrey Epstein. So when you're running a major sting operation like the sting, yes, the Seychelles, very good. So when you're running that type of international investigation, you're doing it because you don't want another 9/11 to happen. You're doing it because bombs are being dropped and thousands of lives are being lost. You're thinking of the bigger picture. So Jeffrey Epstein was questioned. Jeffrey Epstein was being monitored. And Jeffrey Epstein seems to be somebody that was part of these trade routes, part of this illegal activity. So he seems to be involved in trade routes, weapons, people, and hidden money. So when the American intelligence, British intelligence, etc., found out about this, he was given a choice. Number one, he could go to prison for the rest of his life, or he could be an informant. So he chose to become an informant, which basically meant that the agreement was he could do whatever he wanted with impunity. He could do whatever he wanted in exchange for sharing information with the intelligence agencies. That's very different than saying the American intelligence agencies were in on it. The American intelligence agencies condoned everything he did at the parties. The intelligence agencies are not claiming that. They're not claiming that they support what he did at the parties. They're not saying that it was okay. What they're saying is that they left him alone because they were thinking about the bigger picture, which is the greater trade routes. So when we go into Putin's energy and he says, I want my trade routes, I want my trade routes, I want my trade routes, this is one of the trade routes that the American intelligence agencies is attempting to shut down and has shut down. So again, going back to the trade routes, some of what was being traded was human beings, human traffic, and slavery. Weapons, cryptocurrency, right? They were paying themselves, but then they had to hide the money. So they hid it in cryptocurrency because the intelligence agencies were finding the hidden money that was in offshore accounts. So if you can hide money, whether it's in jewelry or crypto or offshore accounts, then you can hide the means with which you buy weapons and smuggle weapons to proxy armies, etc. So this is unfortunately what the victims of Jeffrey Epstein found themselves in the middle of. And this is important to understand because this is kind of like the apology from the American intelligence agencies that they did not condone what happened to the victims. But to see it from the greater perspective, there was more going on than just children being abused by wealthy, powerful people. There were children being abused by wealthy, powerful people, some of whom had been compromised by the Russians, and they had informants within that group of people that were allowed to come and go and run along these trade routes making deals because they were then they were debriefing MI6. They were debriefing Mossad. They were debriefing the Americans. So there's been some stuff on the internet about how it's the evil, terrible Israelis, it's the evil, terrible Americans, it's the evil, terrible British, it's the evil, terrible Saudi Arabians. But from their perspective, what they were trying to do was stop these trade routes. And they say it over and over and over and over again. And it goes back again, trade routes, trade routes, trade routes. We cannot assume that they're going to be trading things that we think are, no, it's, you know, they're trading vodka, they're you know, aluminum, vodka. Yes, aluminum and vodka, but also people, kidnapped, molested, abused people, and specifically selling people for money that is then used to promote the weapons, the purchase of weapons, which and raising money for terrorist groups and proxy armies. So that was the greater picture that you're going to be hearing about. Now, there's some anger and frustration from the intelligence agencies. When I go into the meditation, they're angry at our investigative And that's because the investigative reporters uncovered some of this and, in a sense, compromised the mission. There was so much that they had found out that it's like they had to shut down part of the mission. And so that's what they did. They shut down the mission. They started arresting some of the pedophile rings. They started arresting some of the terrorists, etc. But that was the relationship between the prince, Jeffrey Epstein, and the Kushners, etc. He was the moderate that was going to let women drive. He, thanks for permission, let us leave the home without a male escort, etc. Because Saudi Arabia was an unbelievably closed, constrictive society. So the prince was a moderator, and that was why the British wanted and the Americans wanted to work with him. The next thing I was asked to look into was if I could look at the relationship between Epstein and Clinton and Epstein and Trump and who was more involved. And it looked like Trump was more involved. And I'll tell you why. When you go into Clinton's energy and you look at potential contacts, opportunities to make money, etc., from Clinton, who probably knew he was a CIA operative, they might have partied together. Clinton might have abused children. There may be some evidence of that, and he may have helped Clinton hide his money. There's some evidence of that as well. However, that's very different than the connection we see between Epstein and Donald Trump. What the connection is much deeper between Epstein and Donald Trump, starting with Trump's connections with Epstein and partying with Epstein that goes back quite a long way. But more than that, we're seeing a connection between Trump, Epstein, and Mar-a-Lago. And it seems that the feds are focusing on a lot of the activity, the trade routes, see one of those trade routes where this trading and moving of people, quote unquote, slaves along the trade route was Mar-a-Lago. And that is something that's going to be exposed. So it's as if to say that Trump was a modern day slaveholder. He was moving slaves. He was sending slaves via Mar-a-Lago to other clubs, gentlemen's clubs, sending them privately to people's hotel rooms, etc. And this brings us to the second connection, which is the Trump modeling agency. And it appears when I go in that this is another funnel for Russian money laundering. Is everybody still with me? It's a lot of stuff. I apologize. Okay, so the Trump modeling agency appears to be some kind of a front for what looks like moving human beings, financial trafficking, money laundering. But he was bringing in a lot of females from overseas to be models, which baffled a lot of people because there are plenty of models here in the United States. Why are you shipping them in from Eastern Europe? So this is another area that the feds were looking at along this trade route, was the Trump modeling agency, which has since been shut down. The other trade route, or the way that they were working with Russia and were part of this industry, is the Miss Universe pageant, which they're also looking at, and his connections with Eastern Europe, property in Eastern Europe, and selling property to oligarchs. So when I went into the meditation, it was very obvious to me that Trump's connection with the mob, Trump's connection with the trade route, human trafficking, slavery, selling property, buying property, and working with the Russian oligarchs was much deeper than with Clinton. Clinton appears to make most of his money from speaking engagements, from books, and to some extent real estate, but he doesn't seem to be as closely involved as Trump was. So that was the remote. That was what I saw as far as what the bigger picture was. And that is about to break, I think, because now the intelligence agencies, who are going to be under pressure to explain themselves, that's right, Mar-a-Lago, Wendy makes a good point. Yeah, it was like an underground, yeah. They were smuggling people. It was a slave trade route. It was a modern day slave trade route. So remember going back, you guys had to listen to propaganda for a year. You were ready to strangle me. I guess it's been going on over a year now. I've had the channel. I want my trade routes. I want my trade routes. Don't take away my trade routes. Give me my trade routes. Give me my trade routes. Now, a couple of days ago, I think actually it was yesterday, there was an article in the CNN that Putin is building private military. Did everybody see that article that I went ahead and I posted for people? So that just broke in CNN. Yay, the truth. The truth will set us free. So now, remember he got upset that Libya got bombed? Right? He was not happy about the bombing of Libya because the bombing of Libya by Obama prevented him from starting a trade route from Libya to Africa. Remember that? We talked about that? So what happened after that? He got mad, right? He declared war on Obama and Hillary Clinton because we blocked his trade route, which was to build infrastructure from Libya to Africa. He started again. Who's protecting his trade routes now? Private armies, right? Contractors. So those contractors who are working to protect those trade routes, it's now going to be linked to American contracting companies here in the United States. Can everybody see that? So if you were going to pay Americans to be part of this, if you were going to have meetings with Americans to use their contractors in exchange for pulling out American troops, you would probably be paying them with cryptocurrency, and you would probably be meeting with them somewhere like the Seychelles Islands where you couldn't be monitored. Can everybody see that? All right, awesome. So that was last night's remote. I hope everybody understands how I'm looking out at the world. Can I help anybody? Would you like to watch me eat my breakfast, which is a green smoothie? While I answer your questions. Yes, this is what Dr. Whimsy has for breakfast. What are the questions? They came to the same conclusion? Yeah. Because I didn't know who he worked for. But Israel's an American ally, and her job, Israel's job for the Americans, is to hand over intelligence information about the Middle East, and she was working with Saudi Arabia, with Saudi Arabia's moderates, to put a stop to these global terrorist networks. And they were bribing people and giving them a good time with parties and prostitutes and whatever because they were monitoring the trade routes. There's a feeling of apology for what happened to the victims, but there's a feeling that, well, we did it because we were trying to prevent future victims. Ah, Deanna, thank you for saying yum to my green smoothie. I'm sorry, Michelle. Does anybody want to help Michelle? Because she's been stuck she's working harder than the rest of us. Oh, when I did it, people wanted to know if I had remote viewed thank you for the question, Roxanne. When I did a remote view of the temple on the island, it didn't look like a temple. It looked like a storage facility. They were storing something there. So he made this thing that looked like a fancy, weird temple that had no windows. And you think, oh, what's scary going on in there? And then when I tried to get in doing classic remote, I thought, I think they just store stuff in here. So it looked like it was part of a trade route, and they were storing things in certain areas, and they were trying to, maybe weapons, I don't know. I know that when I lived in Israel, one of the ways that weapons would be stored was in religious places like mosque, and so you couldn't bomb the mosque, and so the terrorists and the weapons, they would all hide in the mosque, and then the Americans wouldn't be able to bomb the mosque, because if you bomb the mosque, so it's not unusual. It wouldn't be unusual to have somebody using a temple or a religious space for weapon runs. That's actually something that's been used before, because, oh, well, that's a mosque. They would never store weapons in a mosque. Or, oh, that's a synagogue. They would, or a church, and that's it's actually it's happened. It happens, and that looks like what I saw. People are telling me that I'm like educated. You know, it's kind of interesting. Thank you, Naomi. That's very sweet of you. I didn't know anything about this. Then I started doing the remote viewings. And then from the remote viewings, I started studying. It's like, oh, that's what I saw. So I definitely think you can use remote viewing to help yourself learn about what's going on in the world. And then, you follow the remote viewing and say, what am I seeing? Yeah. Carolyn talks about, what about the future of Bitcoin? I think they're going to shut it down, because the reason that they were trying to get in with Bitcoin and whatnot and manipulating the market was because it was money that was being used to procure these slave routes, these routes where they were selling drugs, people, weapons, etc. But when I did the remote view on the eastern, I just did the eastern side, it looked like women were being, slaves were being shipped all the way, possibly even into Canada, but New York, New Jersey, Florida, parts of the Carolinas, all along that area is a trade route, and some of the islands hiding money, weapons, etc. And it's a trade route, and the trade route goes to the bigger trade routes, which is connected to illegal weapon purchases, terrorism, etc. And so that was the bigger picture. So it puts you in an interesting light when you think about Ghislaine Maxwell, because Ghislaine, whatever you call her. I've had two different people tell me, no, it's this way. No, I'm never going to figure out how to pronounce her name. But anyway, she seems to have been quite helpful to MI6 and the Americans, Israelis, etc. So what are we going to do with her? What do you folks think we should do? If she's an informant, if she hands everything out, if she's cooperating in this greater picture, which is to shut down these illegal trade routes, what should we do with her at this point? Anybody have any ideas? All right, let's go ahead and we're going to throw cards. Yes, the U.S. opioid addiction. It's all a nightmare, isn't it? I think the equivalent of a witness protection. The final end, what appears to have happened is that at the end of this long, convoluted investigation into these illegal trade routes and the sale of people, weapons, etc., that they were monitoring, when they closed up shop, they're ending their closing up of shop by arresting their informants. Does everybody get that? So they let the informants have a good time for 20, 30, 40 years, and then the party was over. And then the informants basically were either going to be taken out or they were going to wind up under protective custody. So that was what happened to Epstein. Epstein thought that he had incriminating evidence against people that had participated. He thought the intelligence agencies were going to protect him because he was an informant. He was probably guaranteed that that was going to happen before he got on the plane. He was probably hanging out in Europe. No. You're going to be able to live on your island. You've been a great informant. We got a lot of important information from you, Mr. Epstein. So of course we're going to protect you. Of course we're going to put you in protective custody. Of course, get on the plane. Trust us. Everything's going to be fine. You did your job. We're not going to hold you responsible. He gets on the plane and then they tackle him at the airport. And this is not what he agreed to come back to. That's what it looked like. And at that point, if you're doing the heart-centered remote and you put yourself in his shoes, the first thing that entered my mind is you're going to have to kill yourself. And if you can't do it, we'll get somebody else to help you. But it's interesting, Ghislaine Maxwell saw him as somebody who would not have been able to have survived prison. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now with the other half of today. We're going to start doing some blitzes because people were upset that I didn't get to all the blitzes last time. So we're going to go ahead and just start reviewing and answering people's questions. We'll go ahead and do a blitz. Okay, so thank you everybody for the positive support of the channel. Maxwell did hurt a lot of people, Yolanda. That's very true. Yeah, that makes sense, Roxanne, because it looked like they were storing stuff there. Ian says that he thinks there's going to be a blitzkrieg of Trump. Yeah, because they've got film footage, and now the FBI has taken the film footage that was locked up in the safe that was the collateral protection from Epstein. Who told them where to find the stuff? Who told them where he was hiding all that incriminating evidence? Who do you think the main person was? Who do you think threw themselves at the mercy of MI6? Ghislaine, whatever you call her. Yes, she would know where not only all the bodies are buried, but if there was a tape of somebody like Trump, and if MI6 said, okay, the party with Brexit is over, we roped a dope, we let Putin think that he had gotten in as far as he got. Trust me, there was a method to the madness. Continue to monitor the situation, and now we're doing a huge sweep, starting with arresting our informants. And then one by one, we're going to shut down these trade routes. What do you think Putin's response to having all of his trade routes, his illegal trade routes, shut down? What do you think is going to happen? Is this what he wanted? No, he wanted private contractors. Let's work together. Let's make a deal. You cannot stop me. I need my trade routes. He wanted to turn it all privatized, right? He was meeting in the Seychelles with Eric Prince. You make money, I make money. Business, let's be reasonable. The GOP is starting to turn. The mooch is gone. People want me to look at Prince Andrew. Happy to do that. Yeah, I think that if you just look at the number of connections between Trump and what looks like illegal trade routes involved with human trafficking, and if you look at the Russia connections, he's obviously much further in than the Clintons, who probably went to cocktail parties and found him to be entertaining and a little naughty, or, you know. That's a very different connection to somebody in New York society, even if you're participating in some creepy parties. That's a very different connection than somebody who's actually doing business and moving people and has a modeling business where underage children are being potentially shipped, you know, to other countries along these trade routes. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, just very defensive, kind of immature, takes no responsibility for her actions, and probably wants to write a book. I don't see, she's going to become insignificant in a way. Kirsten Nielsen is under serious investigation because she seems to be connected with this plot to privatize military contractors, work with the Russians, allow these trade routes to happen so that they can get rich, basically bring back slavery. Basically let him do whatever he wants and no accountability. But unfortunately, part of those trade routes is also weapons that wind up in the hands of terrorists. and proxy armies that destabilize the whole planet. And this is the problem, again, with these trade routes. Okay, so we're going to do Prince Andrew. They're competing for Africa, absolutely. He just wants to get his trade out, right? Build infrastructure. Was Ivanka? Yeah, she was to some extent. I don't know if she knew everything, but yeah, she did. No, Trump is not loaning Alaska to Putin. You can't legally do that if you're president. They are probably working on a trade route and opening up trade routes, because for him, it's all about the trade routes. I can't look at Melania. I don't do Melania. George Nader was involved. Yes, George Nader was involved. I noticed that Gabbard is away for a couple of, Yeah, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard may have been a really nice person who saw soldiers suffering and thought, you know what, maybe we should let private people come in and start to pull back the troops. And maybe just like Flynn, it seemed reasonable, but that you can't police the world. But the problem is, what happens if all these trade routes are allowed to just go, and new trade routes with slaves and weapons and drugs and no accountability? Will it all just balance itself out magically? You know, free laws, people can do whatever they want. That kind of goes against what the United Nations and NATO was about, because the United Nations and NATO was about understanding that human beings have basic rights. All right. We're going to be interrupted by the leaf blowers, so I'm going to go ahead and shuffle, and we're just going to check and see what's going on with Prince Andrew. What is going on with Prince Andrew? What is going on with Prince Andrew? The base of the matter for Prince Andrew is he is trying to flee. You can see here the first card for him is the Seven of Swords. That is the thief who tries to get away. What is he running from? He's running from Lady Justice, right? He's running from Yehudit, the perfect judge. It's also Nancy Pelosi and Ghislaine Maxwell's card, a fire sign female. So fire sign female coming in, and his card suggests he is fleeing. So again, it would suggest some kind of deal or something going on where he may be in trouble, even though he's going to have to probably make some kind of an apology or excuse for himself, that he thought that she was older, he thought she was willing. You know, he's going to have to face this because Lady Justice is coming. A deal is being offered to him regarding a situation. He himself will probably have to speak to the intelligence agencies, and probably already has, regarding anything he may have witnessed. What is above him? Honeymoon, wedding, celebration, something good is coming. He's examining his own activity. Good for him. Yes, just because this idea, that this pathology that some people don't have to play by the rules, this idea that because I'm royalty, the rules don't apply to me. The rules only apply to the little people. Negotiating an issue that he has been forced to examine regarding his own behavior. Four of Pentacles in the third house, holding on to the coin. It's also self-examination, right? I use it to symbolize, like, it's to some extent my Buddhist card that I use it as. It's a Four of Pentacles with one of the coins shown to you as if it's a mirror. If you want to get to the kingdom of heaven, you must first examine the nature of your own existence. That's kind of how I think of Four of Pentacles. But it's also been called a frugality card. It sits in his third house, what he marinates and what he sits in. So there's some self-examination going on. And you can see here negotiating some kind of a deal. Here and here as well with this Ten of Cups moving in. Hope everybody can see this. I can push this back a little further if it helps. Where he's at right now, he's cooperating. You can see a Six of Pentacles moving in and what is around him. They're probably not going to prosecute him. They're probably just going to take a statement if they haven't already, but I don't see a prosecution or any legal problem coming up for him. And the final outcome is basically he's going to fess up, make some kind of deal. Probably will get a formal apology from him. Yeah, you can see the Two of Cups moving in and a healing. He's going to get off. Yeah, so Andrew's excuse, I didn't know she was that young. I thought she wanted to be. Obviously, I wouldn't want to be with her if she didn't want to be with me. I didn't know. I had no idea. Does that sound feasible? I don't know. Okay, the next person, who else would you all like me to look at? What girl's being released? I don't understand that question. Ghislaine. Ghislaine? Okay, I'll call her Ghislaine. That works out. Yeah. Okay, any more questions here that I didn't get to? Mitch McConnell. Yeah, let's take a look at Mitch McConnell. Everybody took money. Everybody wanted to be a part of those trade routes. You get this? Everybody wanted to make money, cryptocurrency, woohoo! Strolling into the wild, wild west. Private contractors. God bless America, right? Money, 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 money. Everybody wants in at the ground floor. Spirit, can you tell us what's going on with Mitch McConnell? Mitch McConnell. Poor Mitch. Every time I go into his heart, I feel like a victim. Everyone's picking on me, and I've sacrificed so much for this party. He actually feels to me like somebody who has made formal complaints against the president, even gone so far as to file formal complaints that nobody knows anything about. He's somebody who does a lot of things, but he feels that he can get away with it because he follows the rules when he does it. Gets his wish regarding walking away. He's walked away from the president. They've walked away from the president. Okay, I just heard this. All right. 8 Republican, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I heard. 8 Republican senators are going to officially walk. So where does that put us in the numbers? Does anybody know? We have 48 Democrats. Is that right? 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. I don't know how many we need in order to impeach. We need 2/3. So can people tell me how many that is? So it looks like we're going to have a break in the coming week or two of 8 Republicans. So this is happening very, very fast. You guys are awesome. I love playing. I love playing with the cards. I love playing with my friends. This is Whimsy's house. No, we should do, you know what we should do? We should do like a sleepover. We should do, who wants to do a slumber party some night where, you know, we all get hot cocoa, we get online and we just talk and do cards. Wouldn't that be fun if we just did like I love slumber parties. We'll do popcorn. We'll talk about movies. We'll throw cards. We'll do our love lives. It's something much more interesting than politics. We've got to do our love lives, you know. This is fun, but there are so many other things that are more fun, right? Okay, I'm going to get to those questions, but let me just finish with this. Doesn't want to make a deal, but you can see a deal is coming in. He's going to have to negotiate and work with the Democrats, even though he doesn't want to, because, let me show you the cards. You can see Two of Swords, which always comes up for him. He's as stubborn as a mule, but look what's coming in his near future. Two of Cups, action, reaction. So I think that we are in a position of power, and that is why a deal comes in. And you can see here what he sits in, the inevitability of a deal. So it looks like he's going to have to make some kind of a deal with the Democrats, and it probably has to do with the gun laws, because he's coming out of a restricted place where he doesn't want to negotiate towards one of negotiation. And I know that we're now pushing to have stricter gun laws, and so he's probably going to have to open up the Senate to vote on stricter gun laws. With you can see this breaking and cooperation moving in. We'll go ahead and do a clarification for Mitch McConnell. Look at this, double aces and an ace here. Interesting. He's probably going to cooperate. There's a real possibility with cards like this that he will not run for the Senate, or that he will not be reelected, because what's crossing is a Five of Swords, and then the outcome is in the grave. So that's inactivity and walking away. He's walking away from something he can't win, and he's cooperating. How this presents itself going down the road could mean either he's not going to run and doesn't have the energy. He's too old to do another 6 years. And so it's very likely he may, at the end of all of this, choose to step down. A slumber party. Yeah, we're going to do a slumber party one of these days. Bye, Felicia. Yeah, so that's the story with McConnell. He's going to probably have to declare defeat. Can you see him doing another 7, 8 years? Was it a year from now, and then another 6? So I think we may be seeing the end of his career here. Did Trump long-term loan parts of Alaska? No, we already answered that. He didn't. Yeah, the Epstein stuff. Some of it's going to be leaked by independent reporters, which actually, to some extent, the intelligence agencies are upset about, because they saw the bigger picture, which was these trade routes. That's what we started with a year ago when we went into Putin. Was trade routes, trade? I was like, what is he talking about? And he was having a temper. Once he had the attention of the person who was doing the heart-centered meditation, the higher self, it was like a broken record of propaganda and trade routes for months and months and months. Propaganda, trade routes. Then if you keep digging, you find that it's about us blocking trade routes, and that's because of this cryptocurrency and because of the drugs and the weapons, and how those trade routes expand to be trade routes that go to Hezbollah, trade routes that go to Hamas, trade routes that go to terrorist organizations in Europe. The intelligence agencies were not justifying what Epstein did. They want that to be clear when you go into their Akashic records. What they were doing was sitting back and watching, because they were trying to find the trade routes and trying to shut the trade routes down. Thank you, Deanna. They need 10. I think they've got 8. We need 10 senators to vote for conviction to reach 2/3. I think we have 48 Democrats. So if we had 10 Republicans, that would get us to 58. So I think we need more than that. But I'm getting that 8 have already switched over. They're ready to go public pretty soon. So it's moving very fast. It's possible that Trump could leave before impeachment in the House, but the original vision was impeachment in the House. And then when it looked like they had reached the right number in the Senate, he took a deal and resigned. But maybe that opportunity came and went. I don't know. Okay, people had asked if I could look at Nancy Pelosi's cards. Yeah, I'll go in and look at Nancy Pelosi next. She's feeling pretty good, I think. Meeting with NATO, watching the trade routes, securing the trade routes, shutting down anybody that may have been involved in any small way who was an informant in these trade routes. Russian mafia, right? Other mafia persons. How is Nancy Pelosi? How is Nancy Pelosi doing in the coming weeks? Base of the matter. Returning back to old alliances, old relationships, Six of Cups, and some communication or a dropped communication. There's a moon card or lunatic, crazy. It's a time when things appear to be kind of up in the air. Two of Swords, where she's at right now, refusing to budge regarding the King of Wands right over her. This is Mueller's card, but it's also a justice card or a man of justice. Walking away from something. She's in a position of power with a Nine of Pentacles in the fourth house. Three of Wands takes the leap of faith with a Nine of Pentacles. This would lead me to think that she's reaping what she harvests. She's harvesting, she's reaping what she sowed. You can see the Nine of Pentacles would indicate that this is a situation that went on for a long time and that she was planting seeds and now takes the leap of faith. This is somebody who seems to be trusting the intelligence agencies to take care of things, standing back and allowing them to do their job. Knight of Pentacles, she's not doing anything. She's simply standing back and watching the situation. There are tapes that are going to get leaked. Devastation. Regarding the law, I think a lot more people are going to get arrested. I think a lot more people are going to be arrested. I think Nancy Pelosi is trusting the intelligence agencies. I think that Epstein was the tip of the iceberg. I think that they're now starting to arrest their informants, the people that they left alone while they watched these trade routes. Those are the first people that they're probably going to start bringing in. But there's also going to be some high-profile arrest as well. Okay, next question. Biden is too old. I think that instead Elizabeth Warren is she's second now. Kamala dropped down to fourth, I think. Buttigieg is fifth. Booker is also starting to pick up the pace, which is interesting. You know, things could change, but I saw Elizabeth Warren as being the person that would take the nomination. We can go ahead and take a look. Actually, you know, well, how do you guys want to do this? Do you want to see if Trump is going to be lose the he's going to lose for the Republican primary? Do people want to do that? Let's do that next. I want to see if Trump is going to win the Republican primary or if another man's going to. Let's take a look. Is Trump going to win the Republican primary or is he going to be losing to a challenger? Is Trump going to lose the Republican primary? He actually has strong support right now. You can see the strength card moving in for Trump, but trouble's ahead. 9 of Swords moving in for the president. Where he's at, he feels confident that he will take the nomination. Strong position, strength, and the wish card where he's at right now. What's crossing him is victory, so he's going to take the primary. Travel cards moving in. He is concerned about another person. A possible third-party candidate is moving in. He's a thief fleeing a situation. It could be that rather than working on the 2020 campaign, we could see the president leave before the campaign. This would correspond with the cards that suggest he's going to be resigning. You can see in the future he's entering the 7 of Swords, fleeing a situation. Feels victorious now, but in the future he could find himself having to flee, and then anger or the police or some kind of action could be taken against him, hanging it up, moving up in the near future with Chariot moving on, hopes and fears, his coin, his legal situation, and then karma would suggest that his time in the White House is coming to an end. So no, if he runs, he's going to lose, but there's a good possibility he will actually resign before he runs. You can see the final outcome was time running out, and then some type of military or police action. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Anything else we can do for you today? We've got time for one more throw. Yeah, I like Empress. There's some really great readers. I'm really enjoying the readers. I'm watching all the readers. No, I don't think Trump's going to win through cheating. Tom Steyer. Let's throw on Tom Steyer. Let's see. I don't even think he made a debate, has he? What is the future of Tom Steyer? What is the future of Tom Steyer? What is the future of Tom Steyer? Base of the matter, the great negotiator, feeling tied down. It feels like he's going into the business sector. He's going to give up this bid, but yeah, walking away. You can see here. No, he never got enough traction to be anything more than an activist, but I don't anticipate him running for office or becoming the president or anything like that. What I do see for him is that he's going into the business sector, and it's going to be environmental or some kind of a business or technology area that looks like it's modern and it appears to be helpful to the environment. Regarding the issue of Trump and negotiating with Trump, something's happening in August regarding Trump and a negotiation. 6 of Cups here as well. So this is negotiating a deal, working something out. This is the month of August. It's also a growth card. Hopes and fears, and the final outcome, a new beginning. I think he's going into the private sector. I think he's going to be excited about some of the business he's going to be doing. I think it's helpful to the planet. It looks like there's an environmental aspect to it. But no, he's not going to be the president, and I anticipate him actually giving that bid up fairly soon. All right. We're going to be closing now in a couple minutes. Do you think we have time for one more throw? What do y'all think? That was fun. Wasn't it fun today? I had chanted this morning that we have a fun day doing readings, and I'd be able to just tell everybody a summary of the remotes so far. And I was very proud. I did that in like 5 minutes. That was pretty good. One more throw, Michelle. Okay, Michelle. Since Michelle was kind enough to be our moderator today, and I know that that's not always the funnest job in the world, I think we're going to go ahead and let Michelle ask the last question. So, Michelle, do you want to be the one to close today's session and ask the question? Ah, shucks. You ask great questions, Michelle. Yes, what is your question? Pence. People want Pence. Who's the best oracle in the world? Oh, your own heart. You are, Michelle. And everybody watching, go into your heart and don't do things that don't make you feel uncomfortable. That's your best oracle. That's your northern star, your own heart, right? Remember what my friend Marcia Martin said? Your heart is connected to the world in ways that are separate from the brain, and it's making decisions that we have to listen to and honor, and it's pretty darn cool. Will Nancy be president? No, I didn't get the impression she was going to be the president. I think Pence will, but it might only be for about 9 months, and I don't see him winning re-election. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for this love and support. And just, I really appreciate the fact that everybody can be a part of the channel and giving me feedback. And it's interesting. I started this channel as a way of kind of coping with the fact that Trump was the president. And it was nice to make a bunch of friends. And, oh, Kavanaugh. Do y'all want to stick around while I do a Kavanaugh throw? I think we can do that. All right, let's go ahead and do Kavanaugh, and then we'll call it a day. Kavanaugh, Spirit. What can you tell us about the future of Brent Kavanaugh? Permission from Spirit. What is the future of Brent Kavanaugh? What is the future of Brent Kavanaugh? Future of Brent Kavanaugh. One more for good measure. The base of the matter for Brent Kavanaugh, the negotiator tied in knots. There's a feeling that he's being restricted or he's controlled in some way. He cannot do everything that he wants to do. He feels like whatever is happening to Donald Trump has nothing to do with him and that he simply has to do his job. He feels a separation between what is happening with this administration and what is happening to him. He feels that if he were just allowed to do his job, he would be a reasonable judge, he would be a good judge, that he can work across the aisle. He perceives of himself as somebody who just wants to do his job, similar to Barr. Cutting it off, Page of Swords, or it's just and grief. There's a feeling that the Dems make life hell for him, but his job is to simply work on his own. He's just trying to put his head down and do his job. However, there's a possibility of more legal problems coming his way. I don't know if it will result in his impeachment, but there is a possibility that he is going to continue to be under some type of an investigation. All right, everybody, that's how it looks for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. If you're trying to get in for a reading, you can do so by going to tarotwithwhimsy.com and scheduling a phone reading. If you want to come in and see me at the offices here in West Hollywood, just leave me a note. And how it works is after you make the appointment, I call you at the designated time. Remember, I'm in California, so you have to... The times are set for California Standard Time. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. And thanks for the support. Love and light to everybody. Bye. Bye, everybody.